Hello, Facebook land, and happy Wednesday, and happy getting out of Mercury retrograde day. I have to say, my energy is flowing a little bit differently today, and I'm finding deep center coming in these waves today. So it's been a very interesting day, and I'm just kind of going with the flow of it because it's a new year, and because we're going to have this kind of energy patterning throughout the year. And this is an opportunity to grow. And before I dive into the topic, which is why sucking it up doesn't work as a long-term manifestation plan, why you can only handle so much of that at one time before having to actually deal with it, and how to know if you're doing that, I just want to take a couple of minutes and really have us feel into the energy of the day together. Because it has been such an emotional month already. And while we don't have anything in retrograde and we don't have anything pressing on us, we have all these little conjunctions and little squares and little oppositions and little things that come up that change up every couple hours and every couple half days and whatnot, that really kind of do influence where our thoughts do come from. And as I said on the weekly Stars and Cards report on Monday, we have a good smattering of those little things happening this week. So it kind of can feel like you're all over the place. And it's going to make you tired. And it's going to make you feel like you're not in center. And it's going to make you feel like you don't have your stability underneath you. But I do want to remind you this week that we don't need a mountain of security, a mountain of stability under our feet in order to take action, in order to be in center, and in order to find flow. In fact, sometimes we just have to learn to spread our wings. And from my own observations today, also give ourselves a heck of a lot of credit for meeting those things head on. Because if you're feeling it, if you're feeling that kind of like, oh, when is this going to end? Or, oh, I'm so tired from dealing with everything this week, you are leaning into your comfort zone, or you're leaning out of your comfort zone. You're leaning into your edges. And that takes a lot of work. And that takes a lot of energy. And that takes a lot of self-love. So remember to give yourself that time and space this week. Okay. And I do want to remind anybody that if they have any questions or comments, just go ahead questions or any resonances with what I'm talking about. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Share this video out to anybody you might think needs it, any groups you might think might really resonate with this message. So we're going to dive into why sucking it up doesn't work long-term as a manifestation plan. And we're going to cover what it feels like how you know you're in that place, and that way you can recognize how to get out of it faster, and some of the keys to getting out of it, to opening back up to your center and to different thoughts and your own divine potential. So sucking it up is when you're in this state of, I have to do this, I have to get this done, no matter what, things have to be this way. Or maybe that way if you have a backup plan. And you're pushing yourself and you're forcing yourself to be this one or two certain ways, whether it's a feeling state or a set of tasks or this big project you're trying to bring to some kind of conclusion or result direction. You're trying to force it. And you know you're in this sucking it up state, or I just have to make things work no matter what state, when you're feeling desperate, when you're feeling at your limits or at your wit's end, when you're feeling overextended, overwhelmed, and you can't see the little steps of progress that you are making. And so you're feeling just more and more defeated and more frustrated as time goes on. And then perhaps you're even beginning to believe or have those niggles, that voice of doubt saying, like, is anything that you're doing right now actually matter? Is it actually getting you the results? And if it's not getting you the results, then why even continue? Because it doesn't matter. So those are like the key points of how you know you are stuck in making things work or you're stuck in sucking it up. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't love the necessary hard work it does take to get to a goal or a dream. Everything takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of inspired action. It takes a little bit of elbow grease, putting things out there into the world to create those ripples that will come back to us. So we're not talking about not doing work. That is not what we're talking about, so don't go there. But we are talking about being in that state where you feel desperate, where you feel overwhelmed, where you feel overextended, where you feel like you're at your wit's end. We're talking about the energy state. And it doesn't work as a continual basis to create things or to create change or to change your habit long term, because you are always then creating an energy deficit state. And that is one of the, I don't want to say worse, as in like best and worst, like black and white thinking here, but it is one of the fastest ways to get exactly what you don't want to happen. And we'll go into that as we talk here a little bit. I don't see anyone on, but as we go through this, give me hearts and stuff when you feel like I'm speaking to you. This way I can help hone my message and help talk into where you need to hear this today. And if you're on replay, leave me a 2 in the comments so I know, so I can track that easy and I can respond to you with some more practical tips or hints and find out what you actually need to hear. Okay, so it's so coming from this sucking it up place and this I have to get it done and this place of forcing it to happen, it's an energy deficit state. And what happens when we're in that state is we are so caught up in the intense feelings of it, in our fears, that we often don't see that our mind, our heart, our spirit, we're not really very clear. And that clarity in and of itself isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. It's when we start making decisions and creating action from that place of desperation, from that place of I have to make it work somehow, some way, especially when it is in a deficit nature and not in an open nature. Those decisions are poor quality of thought. They are a knee-jerk reaction to the situation, to the emotions we're feeling, a kind of bandage thinking. Oh no, I got a cut. I need to stop it hurting, so I'm just going to bandage this, and we're going to go forward from here. That poor quality of thought never really addresses the root of why you're feeling what you're feeling. And you're going to continue feeling that feeling because you've only band-aided it and you haven't actually healed it. You haven't actually dealt with it. You haven't actually come to the root cause of that pain. And when it all starts to fall apart, because you're in this janky state to begin with, and then you start making poorer and poorer choices based on your desperation, based on your fears, based on your sense of having to scramble or, throw spaghetti at the wall to make something work, your energy just starts to deteriorate as well, because you are no longer adding to your positive energy bank. And it just begins this whole downward spiral. And then we have these stories that begin to form. These stories of why this or that didn't work. That time in the past, why it didn't work last week. How was, How can we really make it work? Because we've been trying everything. But the thing is, we can't judge ourselves. We can't judge ourselves based on those past actions. We can't judge ourselves for acting or deciding poorly in times and spaces where we're coming from that janky energy deficit state. It's like judging yourself for thinking crazy thoughts when you have a cold.
I've been busy.
You don't usually, like, there's no point in judging yourself for that. You know your brain is a little messed up because you're so congested you can't think or breathe. It's the same thing.
November 3rd.
You know, well, you should know. You need to come into this space where you stop judging your past because you are upset. Being upset is like having an emotional cold. Sometimes we simply can't help it, and we need to go through it in order to begin to find the clarity we need, the new thought we need, the good quality of thought we need to get ourselves out of it. And we can't beat ourselves up over it. We can't use that as evidence of why something didn't work that one time, because it's not true. Because the minute we start believing the fear stories and believing the doubt, we stop working the plan that we set out with. And we start working crazy fear plan, crazy fear avoidance plan instead. And we don't recognize it when it's happening. That's the other crazy ass thing about this. We think we are being logical. We think we are doing the next best thing to what we can do because the first thing didn't fail. We think we are simply going on to plan B or C or Q. But we don't necessarily see how that desperation is making our choices more and more about avoidance of a certain outcome rather than the manifestation of the outcome you actually do want. Because the worse we feel, the lower our energy gets, we're not going to be able to pull in the guidance needed to up-level and raise our vision again. So we do have to do the necessary hard work around our manifestations and dreams. And coming at it just from that energetic balance idea. Are you in deficit or are you adding to your positive energy bank? You can begin to see where at least maybe some of your past stories might not be what you thought they were, where maybe some of your current thinking isn't necessarily where you need it to be. And it at least gives you a sense of where you need to start adding to the positive energy bank. What tasks, what parts of your project, what parts of your habit changing do you actually need to bolster up with a lot more positive energy in order to get the flow started again. Just because we got off track doesn't mean that by adding some positive energy, by adding some more self-care and some self-love, that we're not going to be able to get the flow state back. This whole idea of being stuck or even like a writer's block in a sense or a creator's block is all really just you being in a low energy state, a deficit state, and needing to come back out of it again. Sometimes that takes clarity. Sometimes that just takes a little bit of revisioning. Whatever it actually takes, the base part of it is that you need more time to be you. You need more time to sink into the moment and be present with what is coming up. Your emotional energy has to be in alignment with what you want and how you want to get it. We can't expect desperation to produce a glorious result. Just basic law of manifestation, basic law of attraction here. And this was one of the hardest lessons for me. I totally believe that my mind, my ego, was telling me what it was telling me about the impending disasters of this, that, or the other happening or problem. If I didn't do things this way, then somebody would hate me, and then my life would suck, and things would get worse, and maybe not I would die physically, but like I would suffer emotionally more. And I totally believed that somehow or some way, by not reacting to the fear, I could make things worse. It's crazy thinking when you sit back and you really say, like, why did I do that? Well, I did that because I thought I was losing and I didn't want to, or I wasn't ready for it, or wherever you were in that place and time. And it doesn't matter even what the topic of the fear is. It doesn't matter if it's about having money that week, or being broke, or losing the house, or having a fight or disagreement with somebody important to you, or choosing to support someone when it goes against your intuition, when it goes against your better nature or better judgment. We have all these little egoic fears wrapped around our ideas of how we have to do things. And not all of them are true. Most of them, at least if you're coming from this energy deficit state, probably aren't true. It's probably something you're really taking for granted. But working from a place where we desperately need to fix those real problems is a place in your energy where you are actually confirming the reality of those problems and potentially painful events and happenings in your life. It brings you closer to the events you are seeking to avoid. Again, basic law of attraction stuff. I know this sounds crazy, but the big tip around this, the big shift around this, at least from my perspective, and this is just a different way of me saying something that perhaps you've heard other places, but maybe this time it'll make sense to you. Maybe this time it's going to hit home because of the way I say it. For me, in order to dismantle that whole fear pattern, because it kept leading me to these crazy ass choices that never worked out and that only left me worse off than when I started, I had to begin to believe that the options I wanted to see, the things I was trying to manifest, were just as viable, truth-wise, power-wise, potential-wise, and as likely, statistically, odds, cause and effect, as the options I didn't want to see. So in other words, I had to level the emotional playing field about the potentials I was seeing, so to speak. Okay, so how I would approach that was I couldn't bury the fear. I couldn't bury that fear-based potential that I was reacting to, the things I had an attachment around. I had to acknowledge the realness of those outcomes as well. Yeah, I could still lose the house, but I had to do it in a way that also gave me a more clear perspective and not to say black and white, this or that kind of thinking. I had to get out of that zealousness of it's only this way or it's not anyway. So I had to say to myself, like, I might still lose the house, but I do know, like I know, I have to speak a truth here. That home is where my family is. And wherever my family is, we can make a home. And maybe if we make a home someplace else, so we're leading into now a new potential, maybe it's going to be much more affordable than where we are at now. And then you want to invoke something that's even closer to what you really, really want to see. Maybe if we choose to move, maybe we could even walk away debt-free. Now, when you look back at what your original fear was, you can kind of see your relationship to it. Are you holding on to something that no longer serves you, but you are simply just afraid or unclear about how to give up or stop doing, or simply be a different way with? And this is how we come into our conscious creator self. And if you're still struggling with this, no, you just might need to give yourself permission to believe in the best outcome, along with also trying to find some peace and acceptance, a place of power around choosing the outcome that you're trying to avoid. And I know this all sounds crazy, like how do you do one thing or the other? And when you start reframing this, I still might lose the house, but home is where the family is. You are going to come back to your truth. You're going to come back to the place where that fear isn't necessarily, that fear you've been trying to avoid, that happening you're trying to avoid, isn't necessarily the worst thing on earth. Because when you can stop believing some of that black and white thinking, if I lose the house, I will suffer greatly. If I lose the house, my whole family will suffer greatly. We will be destitute. If you can bring yourself back from believing the extremes, you can start seeing how there are other ways this can be, and other ways that already are resonant with your inner truth, your big heart, your intuition. And it's not going to be in conflict, in pain, or in struggle. So you might need to give yourself permission to start leaning into the best outcome as well. And for me, that was always the hardest part, because what I saw was usually so big and so beautiful, like how could it be? But that's part of this whole thing. I don't know how it can't be the worst thing. So maybe I really just don't know how it can be the best thing either. And not knowing isn't a crime, and not knowing isn't a horrible thing, and not knowing doesn't mean you're going to suffer. Not knowing means you just need to make space to find out, to make some choices, to do some research, to learn more. And that conscious creator space is going to lead you to new thought and better quality of thought. It's going to put you in touch with that intuitive and creative genius that you need to be in touch with in order to bring that big shit down and make it real.
Yes, hello.
My husband's on the phone. He's been taking interviews all week. So again, I have to challenge myself to believe that the best thing is also possible and is also on its way to happening. And even if I don't know how it's going to work out, exactly which job, at what pay rate,
Yes, I would.
I have to know, and to maybe extend a little trust
5.5 years
in myself that I'm going to be able, because I'm present, because I'm in love, to roll with what happens. And coming to that space is one of the most important things you can do. And I am giving away a free meditation. I will drop the link for that in a minute, but that meditation is a tool that is going to help you find that place over and over and over again, because each day and each moment is new. We can't expect to just pick up one day from where we left off the other day. The energy is different. Our dreams have changed us. We have lived through the night kind of thing. We have to approach each day and each moment and each work block and each little task we're doing from a clean slate, a slate where we are adding to that positive energy bank. And that meditation is going to teach you how to do it.
Can
so
tell me
that
what the
you
range
are
is that they're
growing
looking for
and you
for
are
position?
shining and you have clarity about the problems and challenges you see
Okay,
that are going to
how much?
lead you to the perfect harmonious solution.
48.
All right, I'm going to drop that link and I'm going to get off because it sounds like my husband's going to be
looking more towards the
on the phone for a couple minutes here, and you don't need to hear his pre-interview with the headhunter. But wish me luck, and I'll send you all my love and all my blessings and all my light for today. And I will see you on Friday. And oh, I'm going to do a live meditation on Friday in my Thriving
If you could please
and Free
put the link
Empaths
on the phone
and
in the
Intuitives
subject
group.
line,
So if you
that
want to
way
be
I can
part of
put it in the top
the
of my list.
live stream and the meditation, go ahead and ping me for that
In your
link,
subject line,
or maybe
could you
I'll just
please
put it
state
here.
that we spoke on the phone? That will put you at the top of my list of things to look at.
But yeah,
'Cause I get about
and if I don't
300
see you in the
emails.
group, I will see you on Monday. All right. Have a beautiful week.
Just say that we spoke on the phone in your subject line.